This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Riley Smith.
Good day and welcome to Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Today is Tuesday, June 4th of 2024. We're so glad you can join us for today's show. And as a reminder, we look forward to seeing you guys and being able to deliver you news from the World Pork Expo starting tomorrow and running through Thursday. In today's episode, I run down the latest Iowa Ag news headlines, including a release from the U.S. Meat Export Federation on how they're handling the trade deal with Colombia right now, as Colombia is not accepting meat products from states that are dealing with HPAI, which obviously includes Iowa. But first we get into any of that, let's take a look at the closing markets.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
At the end of another trading day in the ag marketplace, we're here with Ross Baldwin of agmarket.net. First off, Ross, what do we see in the grain markets today?
Hey, Riley. Another day of risk-off trade across the grain markets. Corn was 1 to 2 lower. Soybeans, they were 5 to 8 lower. And over in the wheat market between Kansas City and Chicago wheat, they were 12 to 14 lower. So they led the way lower for the grains.
And of course, with a new month, we have a new WASDE report coming out later. What are we expecting to see from that? Any major changes this month?
Nothing major for this WASDE coming up. Some numbers that have been thrown around, as you could see, the USDA make some adjustments on bean crush, which could add to the bean carryout if they do. And that of the main three, corn, beans, and wheat, I do think if you do see some increases to the bean carryout, I mean, that's the one commodity that really can't afford to see a whole lot added back, given the situation we're looking at for the new crop with expectations or forecast of 450 million bushel bean carryout. So the bean market certainly doesn't need to see that number continue to grow, but I do think that's a reality of what we've been seeing between crush and honestly even export demand for beans. So that's one thing for guys to keep their eye on for the bean market.
Then of course, we're paying attention to that South American market as well. They've been getting a lot of rain and there's issues with flooding down there. Now there was private analyst StoneX that recently put out a report saying that there might be lower estimates to the crops down there now. If we see those lower estimates, what are we expecting that to do to the U.S. grain prices?
It should support the bean market to an extent. I know there still remains private analysts that are forecasting a lower crop down there versus where the USDA is still at. So it would certainly be supportive, but given the calendar of where they're at on their crop season down there for that bean crop and with the U.S. growing season, I look at this point, unless there was some wild shock to where those numbers really came in drastically lower, I wouldn't look for it to have a meaningful impact. And I think the U.S. growing season and the impacts that'll have on our bean crop will probably carry more of weight to the bean market here moving forward.
All right, and then on the other side of the marketplace in the livestock complex, what do we see in cattle and hogs today?
Lower day of trade. Again, the cattle market remains very choppy. I mean, it wasn't a terrible day. June live cattle were 15 cents higher. August live cattle were 42 cents lower. The feeder cattle market was 20 to 30 cents lower. We did have an aggressive day of selling yesterday. Feeder cattle, August feeders bounced right off major trend line support. And at one point they were down, I believe it was about 280, somewhere around there yesterday, and rallied back to only close 20, 30 cents lower. So it was pretty calm day following that reversal. It would have been nice to see us hold the early gains. We made a high right out the gate this morning where we were about $1.90 higher on feeders, but they just ran out of steam. In that market, the cattle market just remains extremely choppy in range bound right now, which it's normal for the beginning of June. But I do think I'm looking for those markets to continue to find support, and I really think they'll start to move higher. Cash was 1 to 2 lower last week. The South was trading 186 versus 187 the week before. The North we were still trading 190 up here. So the cash market, while it did back off a little bit, it's still firm. We're only up here in the North. We're only $2 to $3 off the all-time highs. So I do think the cattle market, we're on good footing. The box beef market, it continues to stay firm, and it's working higher. Choice was $1.22 higher this morning, came in at 316.82. So it's good to see that market find some support. Over in the hog market, the hog market, they had another rough day. July hogs were 235 lower. They actually gapped lower right on the open, and they just never looked back. That gap's still open for July from 96.07 up to 96.22. So that'll be a target to watch. But the hog market, just the trend remains lower. They have been oversold July hogs. I believe the RSI going home today is 22 to 23, but that's nothing new. They've been oversold. The trend remains drastically lower, especially you just look at how ugly the charts look. And until we either see hogs sell off hard and have a major reversal and close the day higher, or we just stop this bleeding and get a couple closes above a previous day's high, it's just hard to get too optimistic on this hog market. But you got to think, given the sell-off and how many days, we got to be going on almost 30 days of the selling pressure in the hog market. So you got to think here we're getting real close for a bounce in the hog market.
Lots of great information today, Ross. For those of our listeners and our viewers who would like to get in touch and learn more from the folks at agmarket.net, how can they do that?
You can reach me at our office here in Anthon. Our number is 712-373-3276, or you can go to agmarket.net to find any of the ag market brokers.
All right, thanks for visiting with us as always, Ross, and we look forward to hearing from you again soon.
Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
That again was Ross Baldwin of agmarket.net. We'll take a look at how the numbers closed through the market window at iowaagnet.com.
July soybean meal down $4.40 at $355.10. Soybean oil down 52 cents at $43.62. Chicago wheat down 14.5 at $658 1/4. Kansas City hard red wheat down 12 3/4 at $687 1/4. Minneapolis spring wheat down 10 1/4 at $723 1/2. July oats down 9 1/4 at $365 1/2. On the Merc, June live cattle up 15 cents at $182.17. August feeders down 17 at $256.02. June lean hogs down 95 at $92.70. Pork cutout down 42 cents at $102.75. And June Chrysler milk up 20 cents at $19.86.
And that's been a check of the markets here on Ag Matters PM. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association, and the Soy Checkoff. When we come back, I have the latest Iowa Ag News headlines. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Welcome back to Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Time now to take a look at the latest Iowa Ag News headlines. The USDA announced the next steps it's proposing to address the many complex competition issues in agricultural markets and create a fairer playing field for poultry growers and farmers. The USDA is proposing the rural poultry grower payment systems and capital improvement systems. The new rule would address a range of abuses that have occurred in relation to grower ranking payment systems, commonly called tournaments. It also addresses abuses of additional capital investment requirements that poultry companies commonly ask of their contract growers for broiler chickens. This rule is the third in a suite of Packers and Stockyards Act rules that the USDA has undertaken to create fair markets, which ultimately will lead to lower grocery prices for hardworking families. The USDA is also announcing new publicly available cattle market transparency tools. These and previous actions are intended to enhance transparency, stop retaliation and discrimination, reduce costs, and support market fairness in every circumstance. In other news, Colombia is the only trading partner to impose restrictions on imports of U.S. beef as a result of highly pathogenic avian influenza being detected in some lactating dairy cows. Homero Riccio, U.S. Meat Export Federation Latin America representative, said Colombia currently will not accept beef from any of the 9 states impacted by HPAI.
With the issue of HPAI in Colombia, there are 9 states banned from exporting beef to Colombia. And while this started back around April the 15th or 16th, there was a lot of uncertainty for the first week, 10 days with the ban, given that there was no official information that was passed on to our government. During that interim, our office and Maria Ruiz down in Colombia were working closely with our government to see when we could get something official so that both exporters and importers would know how to respond to the issue at hand. Since then, there has been some clarity to the situation. It's unfortunate, given that we have a free trade agreement with Colombia, that Colombia would take this action against U.S. beef. And so currently those 9 states are ineligible to ship to the United States. However, we do have plants in other states where export certificates are now being granted and import certificates in Colombia are also being granted. So some trade has started back up, but clearly the supply is going to be more limited, but yet we still believe there are some really good opportunities given the situation.
The U.S. industry is doing its best to overcome this trade barrier and meet the needs of Colombian customers by sourcing beef from eligible states. Rosillo said that despite Colombia's restrictions, the business climate for U.S. red meat remains favorable, with strong demand from the retail and food service sectors.
We feel very good about the market and the demand for U.S. beef. The wet market is still the traditional method for marketing protein in Colombia, but you see this growth of supermarkets. This food service business is increasing tremendously on the higher end. And so, that's our customer. The top 7 to 10% of the Colombian population, that's really our customer. That's our sweet spot right now. And so, yeah, the scene is changing. Restaurants have opened back up. Everything is, where we were pre-COVID and beyond that now to a bit. So, things are good.
For more information, visit usmef.org. And finally, the National Dairy Farmers Assuring Responsible Management, or FARM program, announced the nomination period is open for the 2024 Farm Excellence Awards. These awards spotlight participating farms and farm evaluators that demonstrate excellence in their engagement with the FARM program. Awards are divided into 4 categories: animal care and antibiotic stewardship, environmental stewardship, workforce development, and Farm Evaluator of the Year. Nominations are accepted from fellow dairy farmers, community members, extensions, cooperative and processor staff, veterinarians themselves, or others. Nominations are due by August 1st. Nominated farms must have a current farm program evaluation in the respective category and be in good standing with the program. For more information or to make a nomination, go to nationaldairyfarm.com. And that's all for today's episode of Ag Matters PM. Thanks again for tuning in. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. Also follow us on social media at Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and TikTok, and find our video content as well as previous episodes of AM PM on our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell to see when those videos go live. Don't forget as well our free morning, midday, and closing market podcasts, as well as Pods of Potential and the Iowa Ag Matters podcast, wherever you find your favorite podcasts on Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and Podbean. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Riley Smith. On behalf of Mark Magnuson, Dustin Huffman, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.